In this video, I'm going to show you how to get your tomatoes through the heat so you can keep the harvest going. After a long, cool spring and early summer, we are now starting to heat things up. It is now in the mid-90s here during the day. I know for a lot of you out there though, humidity along with the heat is a major concern in growing tomatoes throughout the summer. In the comments, let me know where you are and if heat or humidity are your biggest problem. Or maybe both. Let's tackle humidity first. Tomatoes are thought to have originated in the highlands of Peru in South America. Now, typically when I think of South America, I think of tropical, wet, humid rainforests. But the highlands are actually quite the opposite and are actually really dry with average temperatures of 75 degrees. And that's why tomatoes are such wimps when it comes to any kind of high heat or humidity, especially on their leaves. But there are a couple things we can do to help them through it. The first thing is, if you live in a hot, humid summer climate, you need to increase the airflow through and around your plants. All of these leaves, while they are not diseased right now, there's so many of them that they do decrease the airflow through the plant. So we need to get rid of some of these. The most obvious place to start is at the bottom with any leaves that are just completely dead or dry. Anything that's unhealthy looking, we're gonna just cut it off. And you don't have to worry about taking too many of these bottom leaves off because they've served their purpose. Any dead or dry leaves are not going to be photosynthesizing anyway. Now, as far as the interior leaves, I'm going to start again, even if they're not at the bottom. If there's some that look dead, dying, yellowing, those are all going to come off first. Now, once we've got most of the dead and dying leaves off, you still have a lot of thickness in here in the greenery. The plant doesn't need all of this. Again, with photosynthesis, there's plenty in here that's not getting much daylight at all. So you want to get in here and cut leaves that are overlapping and just take off about 20% of the leaves all the way through the plant so you can kind of just get an airier feeling to it. Now, you're also going to want to continue with your aspirin spraying regimen. If you've seen my other video, great. If not, in a nutshell, when a tomato plant is under attack by pests and disease, they produce a hormone that is similar to the salicylic acid in aspirin. This hormone actually pumps the plant's immune system into high gear before any pests or disease attack. So when they do, the plant is ready. Just take 600 milligrams of uncoated aspirin and blend it with a cup of water. Add that to a gallon of water in a sprayer and spray your plants every 2 weeks, especially before wet weather. With or without humidity, excess heat is a problem for your tomato plants. And if your weather is in the upper 80s or higher for more than a few days at a time, you're going to notice a smaller amount of fruit set. And that's either going to be because the flowers are not going to form, or they will form, but they will dry and fall off before they get pollinated. We can't control the weather 100%, but there is something you can do. Get yourself some 30% shade cloth and just throw that over your tomato plants when those temperatures get into the upper 80s or higher for more than a few days. And that's going to lower the temperature inside enough for the tomatoes to keep on keeping on. Now, if you have extended periods of heat where the heat is up in the 90s and 100s, this shade cloth may or may not even help at that point. But if you can just keep the disease away like we mentioned before, then when that weather starts to cool off, the tomato plants will start producing again. In the heat, you're going to want to make sure your tomatoes are always moist at their roots. And so you want a really deep root run. To encourage that, you want to water less frequently, but longer, deeper. When you do that, you get the moisture deep down where the roots will follow to lap it up. If roots run deep, when the sun comes out and dries the top 2 inches of soil, it has less effect on the plant. When you water frequently and shallowly, the roots are all in that top few inches of soil and are susceptible to the sun drying them out. A big concern some people have when it's hot outside is the way their tomato plant looks. It can start to look weird. The leaves can start curling up and you might think they need more water. If your leaves are curling inward like this, so they should be flat, but they're curled up, there are a few reasons that could be happening. But if it's hot outside, you can bet that's probably the reason. Now, that doesn't mean you need to run out with the hose and water them. It's not an emergency situation. In fact, the plant may not even need water. Usually what's happening is the plant is losing more water through the leaves into the air than it can bring in through the roots, even though the soil may be perfectly moist. So to protect itself, the leaves curl to diminish surface area to keep more water in the leaves. If you live in an area where the temperatures are usually into the 90s in the summertime, then you need to look for a variety of tomato that does well in heat. I did this video a few months ago that will match the right variety to your climate. Give it a click and find tomatoes that will thrive no matter where you live. See you next time.